AMD Opteron. These are workstation and server processors for corporate clients. They look for reliability, good silicon and registered ECC memory. But in 2005, look at this. We have an AMD Opteron, but it is for socket 939, which is the consumer platform. To me, it doesn't make much sense. Why would you release a workstation processor on your consumer platform? For the customers, yeah, these processors were amazing. The silicon quality was high, they overclocked really well. Word quickly spread, and for a moment you could buy these actually for a lower price compared to the Athlon 64 CPUs. But as word spread, prices quickly increased, so I don't think they were around for too long. Thank you, John, for the donation. He sent us this processor and a whole box of other goodies. Very much appreciated. I love looking at CPU and GPU lists on Wikipedia. Here we have all the Opterons and you can see socket 940, socket 940, socket 940. So that was the main platform. However, in 2005, launched a couple of Opteron CPUs for 939. The model we're looking at today, the 144, runs at 1.8 gigahertz and it's got 1 megabyte of level 2 cache. So let's put together a system and find out what the CPU can do. Let's start with the motherboard. For socket 939, I don't have too many options. For some reason, I ended up with 4 of this model. This is the Asus AV8 and this version is the deluxe one, which has some additional onboard storage. We had some compatibility issues with the VIA chipset in the past, but I'm happy to report in this project everything worked fine, no crash, no blue screen, perfect compatibility. I checked in the BIOS the AGP aperture configuration. It is set to 256 megabytes, and for storage the VIA SATA controllers, they can be a little bit flaky, so we're using the adapter from StarTech to convert a SATA SSD to IDE. For the chipset drivers, we're using the Snappy Driver Installer Origin project. I unselect the drivers for the graphics and the sound card because I want to choose specific drivers manually. For the memory, we have two 512 megabyte modules, DDR 400 MHz CL3. Now I'm fully aware for this platform you want CL2 memory, really good timings and also 1T command rate. Maybe that's something we'll look at in a future video. I haven't used these modules before, so I'm running memtest. I want to see at least one complete pass and yeah, that checked out, so let's continue with using them. For the graphics card, we have a NVIDIA GeForce 6800 GT. This is a beautiful looking card from Albotron, not around anymore, this brand, and it's the reference design with a custom logo on the cooler. It requires a Molex connector for power at the back. It has 256 megabytes of RAM. And yeah, for the Athlon 64 era, I think this is a really good choice of video card. We're using the NVIDIA 71.84 driver. This one is from March 2005, so fits right into the era of this project. I didn't want to use drivers too much later than this one because they're already focusing on the NVIDIA 7800 GTX and you might not get the best performance out of this card. For sound, we're using the Creative Labs Sound Blaster X-Fi Extreme Music in combination with the Daniel K X-Fi drivers version 5. Let's have a look at some benchmarks. In 3D Mark 2001 SE, we're getting 20,381. In 03, we're getting 10,904. And in 05, we're getting 4,766. And here are the gaming results. Let's start with Far Cry with the ultra details configured in the game, and we can see across all the resolutions we're getting basically the same performance. So here we are held back by the processor. The video card could do more. Doom 3 with high details pre-configured in the game. Here we can see a little bit of a GPU scaling going on. up to 1024 by 768, we're getting over 70 FPS, but then performance goes down a little bit, but even at 1600 by 1200, we're getting around 60 FPS, not quite, but that is still a very good result. Half-Life 2 Lost Coast. Now here we can see performance struggling a little bit. Now this is the modern Steam release, so it's way more demanding what you had back in the day, and also the highest details configured. Across all the resolutions, the performance goes down, so here we are held back by the video card. We can see the same in Fear. This is one very demanding game. I've configured it without these soft shadows because that's even more demanding, and again we can see as soon as you increase the resolution, the performance goes down. So back in the day, these two games, Half-Life 2 and Fear, are probably games you would play at lower resolutions and definitely with lower details. And now let's check out some games. The first one is Screamer 4x4. Now we've been playing this in a few videos and I've been complaining that, well, look, it's a fun game. The graphics are beautiful. I like the concept, but it's actually really difficult. And this time I sat down and I really tried hard to at least win the very first championship, which, yeah, it's not too much to ask for, but yeah, I couldn't do it. I tried basically the first stage of the game. There are 4 tracks and I just couldn't do it. The game is really harsh on you, it punishes you. So if you hit the gates, you get penalized straight away, and you really need to have a perfect run almost. And then you get an unlock, like some tires that have more grip. But all in all, my conclusion now is that this is a great game to test your machine. It supports Direct 3D, OpenGL and Glide, which is very unique. Not too many games have that, so you can play around with the different APIs. And it's a good benchmark to test your machine, see if it's working. It supports high resolutions as well, up to 1600 by 1200. But in terms of gameplay, it's missing the fun. It's just too difficult for me, so I don't think I will be playing this game much more. You might see it again just as a benchmark, so to speak. Much more fun is playing Max Payne, and I actually spent several hours playing this. Now in the past video I got some really good tips for the difficulty, so now I'm checking all the cabinets and the drawers for health rations. Ammunition is actually quite plentiful. I'm using quick save, F5 and F9. I've mapped the keys for the bullet time feature and all of that, and yeah, in the beginning of the game that strategy worked pretty well, but as you progress, basically around halfway through the game, the difficulty just gets really ridiculous, and it got to the point where I have to like quick save going around every single corner, and then you run into a situation where you die, you load again, you die again, quick load, die again, and you have to try 10 times until suddenly you magically walk away from a fight, and that's not too much fun. I appreciate that you should have a little bit of a challenge and you get a sense of accomplishment, but that was too difficult. So in the end, yeah, I activated some cheats. You have to put a command parameter in the shortcut, and it activates developer mode, and then you can play with unlimited health. And yeah, the game now is fun, of course, because yeah, you can focus on the graphics, on the assets, on the story. You're looking forward to seeing new enemies, playing around with new weapons, and the frustration aspect is just gone. The game flows smoothly. You can really relax, enjoy the atmosphere, and yeah, having a blast. I think I'm close to beating this game, not in this video, but very soon, and really enjoying playing this one. How can you obtain Max Payne for your retro gaming PC? It is available on Steam. Steam, of course, doesn't work under Windows XP, so you have to find a no CD patch, copy the game folder across, and it runs beautifully under Windows 98 as well as under Windows XP. There are some options to configure with the graphics. Today we're playing at 1024 by 768. All the details are maxed out. I've also enabled 16x AF in the NVIDIA driver, and I've enabled VSync to get smoother gameplay and nicer captures. All in all, big thumbs up for Max Payne, a beautiful game. Not a bad CPU, but can it run Crysis? Well, it does run Crysis, but the performance is not that great. I had to load the details. We're using the low detail preset, and it does run the game, but it's not the way I would recommend playing Crysis. You see, when Crysis came out, I believe I had a Core 2 CPU, and in terms of the video card, you could get a 8800 GTX, which is much more powerful than what we have here. So yes, technically it does run Crysis, but I don't recommend playing it on this machine. So what are my thoughts on using the Opteron 144 for Windows XP retro gaming? So let's start with the good things first. This time the project worked fine. I didn't run into any major issues. I'm really happy because I have 4 of this motherboard. So I really wanted to figure out, how to best use it. And yeah, what you need to look out for is make sure in the BIOS, check the AGP aperture setting and avoid the SATA controllers. They can be quite flaky. Even the onboard Promise SATA controller, I couldn't get them to work under Windows XP. As for the processor itself, well, imagine it's an Athlon 64. It's basically the same thing. And the specifications, you can look up the data sheets on Wikipedia where they compare all the different models with the Opterons on Athlon 64. So it's basically an Athlon 64. Now the clock speed on this model is quite low, so that's why I probably wouldn't recommend rushing out for the Opteron 144. Now, overclocking these days, it's not something I'm passionate about. Back in the day, I do understand with overclocking you buy a cheap processor and extract more performance out of it. Now, with these parts being a little bit rare and harder to find, I really don't want to stress them too much. Slow is good, in fact. And so all in all, I still give this CPU a thumbs up, but it's not something I would recommend to rush out. I think you're better off with a higher clocked Athlon 64. In terms of performance, you're not gonna gain anything extra from using the Opteron. Now, with the RAM, we might do a future video of maybe tweaking this platform, maxing out the RAM, maxing out the video card, finding the best processor for socket 939 and just seeing what sort of difference we're getting. If that's something you want to see, let me know in the comment section. So now I want to hear from you. Do you know why did AMD decide to launch the Opteron processors for socket 939? The only hint of information I could find online was maybe they were trying to increase the market share of the Opteron. But yeah, I don't think that was such a good idea, to be honest. But yeah, really curious to hear from you. And did you have an Athlon 64 back in the day? Or maybe did you have one of these Opterons and overclocked it? Let me know. Share your thoughts down below in the comment section. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed playing with these parts and hopefully you enjoyed watching this video. I shall see you soon with another one.